Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, three-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners.
On this episode, Dan and Hoges recap the Twins' three-game series against the Detroit Tigers. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is Dan Thompson. With me, as on occasion happens, is Andrew Hoganson. Hogs, thank you for filling in for David. Thank you for filling in for me. Last time I was in Portland. I had a great time. I love that city. It's got great breweries, places I can't normally go with my children all the time. So it was fun to be there. Also, have you heard the buzz at all that they've been trying to get a Major League Baseball team? Does that make the news in Minnesota?
Yeah, no, it definitely has here. I think it is definitely one of the leading cities, and it is a great city. I've been there just once for a quick weekend trip. It's a blast. There's a lot to do there.
Tons to do. We had a great time walking around. They have a new waterfront. We were actually in Vancouver. It's kind of the the lesser cousin to Portland on the Washington side.
Yep.
You get different tax rates, so people are jumping across that bridge all the time just to make sure that they don't get taxed on clothes in one, but get taxed on their cars, and it's very confusing. But we had a lovely time, so thanks for filling in. I was actually in a place, very often I'm in an attic or in a basement or somewhere in a shed out back.
Haunted house.
But I was
it looked
actually
like last time.
It did, but I was actually in a house with a great recording studio, and yet it was nice to step away. And then it's always fun when you and David get to talk, especially the line challenging David whether he's got a song in his heart. I have wondered that for a long time, but you
Right?
put it better than anybody.
Yeah, he got me pretty fired up. I mean, like you guys were talking about, we had quite the text thread going on after that podcast where he just trashed musicals, and I mean that one hurt. That one got me going. There's no doubt about that.
Well, here's the thing. So we can make all these references to musicals throughout this episode, and David's not even going to know. That's the beauty of what we're about to do here.
It truly is. But man, yeah, I'm happy to be recording again. It was fun doing the last one with David, and I mean, look at what happened in the last 3 days. I mean, it has been insane. David and I talked a lot about maybe with the prices that everything was going for, with Montes going for as much as he did and Castillo, that maybe the Twins weren't going to be able to do anything, and they went out and they got a starter and two relievers. Can you believe it?
So when they get Lopez, from the Baltimore Orioles, who they had actually roughed up twice in the series about a month ago, but they get him first and for a handful of prospects, and I thought, all right, if that's it, then that's it. But then they kept going, Hogs.
Yeah, when they went out and got Lopez, I was thinking the same thing too. Like maybe that's it, but at least we got a bona fide closer. They're looking good. We got some bullpen help. But then they went out and got Tyler Mahle, and I mean that was, even after that, I was still thinking like, look, we got a starter, we got a reliever. Everyone moves down a peg. This is looking awesome. And then they did another deal with the Tigers to get Fulmer. I mean, walks right across the clubhouse in order to join the Twins. It is crazy. I was blown away the entire day that they kept wheeling and dealing.
Don't forget about maybe the biggest change that they made to get Sandy Leon, who, I don't know about you, Hogs, but when I hear that name, I hear like, oh, this is like the 8 or 9 hitter for Boston or Cleveland or whomever, who always like gets a hit that's inconvenient. Like he's the guy that you're supposed to get out. And then finally in Game 3, we'll talk about this a little bit more, he's the guy who has the big hit. It was brilliant for the Twins.
And he actually, he's been in the majors and AAA for a long, long time. He's career like 180 hitter. His stats at Target Field are unbelievable. He's like 17 for 45 at Target Field. So maybe we got the new Ted Williams now playing catcher for us.
I saw that tweet too. A couple other things, just transaction-wise, it was a whirlwind of transactions here. So Celestino goes on the paternity list basically just as Gio Urshela came back from it, which made me wonder if we can go back to the Miguel Sano timeline. Is there a way that maybe Rocco was talking to Gio Urshela's wife, just kind of saying, hey, so could that baby come like...
Yeah, just hurry it up a little bit.
Because we got this thing with Miguel. So is there a way...
It's so weird. And did you see he's now officially on the 60-day IL? So, his tenure with the Twins is most assuredly over. But, man, and then, Joe Smith gets DFA'd, and Aaron Sanchez does as well after pitching incredibly in Game 1. Who knows if he'll be back or if that's just kind of a roster crunch move right now, but so much movement.
And then Caleb Thielbar came back in time for Game 3, didn't pitch in Game 3, so he's back too. This series just did mayhem to the roster. It's I don't even remember who's left on this roster now. And with Garlick getting hurt, with Kirilloff going on the injured list, it's going to be, I'm curious to see what happens with this roster the next couple days.
Honestly, if all we did for this entire podcast is just list the transactions, I think that would cover the 30 minutes or so. And I did just see that they sent Giovanni Moran down to AAA for Mahle, so that's what the roster move for him was.
So there it is. So I think the Twins roster is finally set. But let's go ahead and talk about this series. The Twins win 2 of 3 here against the Tigers. Let's get into the recap.
Series recap.
Hoges, you mentioned this. Aaron Sanchez comes in, pitches well, and then gets ditched a little bit later.
Yeah,
really bizarre.
I feel so bad for some of these AAA guys. And I mean, I know we picked up Sanchez from Washington, but they come up, they have great games, and then they're just sent down right away. That's got to be so frustrating sometimes. And maybe that's a little bit of the dark side of having St. Paul right there, is that the Twins have the ability to do that. For the players, it's a dark side. For the manager,
Sure.
Obviously, it's amazing. But yeah, this game, you actually texted in about the 6th or so that it would just be a shame if the Twins didn't mount a rally because of how great their pitching was.
Well, and they did. So they win this game 5-3. There is some excitement in this one. First, Sanchez's line, he pitches 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, but 8 strikeouts. And then Jarrell Cotton comes in. He pitches 2 2/3 with 3 strikeouts, was lights out, and that was enough space to give the Twins to make their comeback.
That's all they needed, and then they get Miranda with a huge 1-out single to drive in 2 runs in the 8th, and then they tacked on a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 10th to win it up for Gio Urshela, showing some dad power up at the plate.
Gio Urshela, we've talked about this before. He is up in so many key situations for the Twins. And again, this series throughout, he was up so many times in big spots. And I think more often than not in the series, he really did come through, like that game-winning home run in the 10th.
Yeah, he really does come through a lot. I mean, and then he gets a sacrifice fly later in the series. Like, that guy grounds into so many double plays, I feel like. But whenever there's runners in scoring position late in the game, something good's going to happen with him. And I kind of like having a guy like that on the team.
Absolutely. And the Twins did some weird things. So they've had to juggle outfielders quite a bit. Byron Buxton gets his rest day. Kyle Garlick plays, but as it turns out, he had hurt his rib a little bit running into the wall against the Padres. So then he comes out. And then the weird thing, Alex Kirilloff actually comes out and plays a few innings of defense in the field, but he cannot hit. So then Tim Beckham has to come in and pinch hit for him, which he struck out. So I would argue maybe they didn't need necessarily to, like, Kirilloff could have done that.
Just stood there.
And then
that
Beckham
was so
does play
weird.
left. Wasn't that weird?
It didn't make any sense to me. I honestly thought that Kirilloff had already been sent down or it was on the IL because they had said like he can't swing the bat, like his wrist is hurting him too much. And then all of a sudden he goes in, and I'm like, what is happening? Like what are we doing right now? Maybe it was encouraging that he was still able to play in the field. I don't know. I was scratching my head the entire sequence.
Well, and then Kepler's on the injured list too. So, but let's look at game 2. This is the one that the Twins do not win, and this is after all of the trades happened earlier in the day. The Twins, they actually score first, but then the Tigers get a couple more runs in the 5th to tie it, and ultimately they have a 3-run inning in the 7th that really breaks open the game. Archer goes 4 1/3, 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks. Again, 8 strikeouts. Strikeouts were not, they were easy to come by for the Twins starters. And the bullpen does okay, but Pagan gets a hole, but then Jax comes in and gives it up. And again, the Twins just some wasted opportunities here, Hoges.
This was a frustrating game. You're hoping that you come out with the front office making all of those moves during the day, that guys are jacked up. And by all accounts, they absolutely were. I mean, they didn't lose any of their major league players and revamped that bullpen so much. And the guys were apparently hopping in the clubhouse. So it was a frustrating one to lose, especially to the Tigers.
Well, and the Twins had their chances. So in the 3rd inning, they just get 2 runs. It looked like maybe Nick Gordon had hit a grand slam. It was really hard to tell as the ball is going down the right field line. From my view on the TV, it looked like, maybe he had hooked it inside. Hard to say. The Twins do get a sac fly out of that, but then they're not able to really tack on enough runs there, and that really costs them. They go 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position, leave 7 guys on base. Contreras does hit a home run, but this one just felt like, man, not having Buxton in the lineup. This is a game where if Buxton plays, maybe they find a way to win.
I think so too. Just having that energy in the lineup and a couple more clutch hits would have helped us out a lot in this one.
One other moment, this is a weird play early in the game. Chris Archer is on the mound, and Chris Archer has struggled with his control. And it's a pitch where it wasn't terribly wild, but Gary Sanchez didn't really even try to catch it. It was one of those where it's like, oh, I'm not going to get that. Nobody's on base. And it did the weirdest thing. So the ball goes back all the way to the backstop, and then it just bounced off the wall and then past everybody and right to Archer's feet. And it was just like...
Who needs a catcher if you can do that? Just
right.
Just hit it off the backstop. Is there any pitcher that looks more uncomfortable on the mound than Chris Archer? He always looks like he's in a jam. I mean, the count could be 0-2 with 2 outs, and he's walking around looking like he's sweating, shuffling around. It's kind of like the Michael Pineda and even Joe Nathan way back in the day, who always looked like he was sweating. I want a guy like Troy Percival back with the Angels that would just glare guys down, and you just felt so confident in him the whole time. Archer just makes me so nervous every time I'm watching.
Well, that's because he is very literally 2 pitches away from being in a jam, because he can hit guys so dang fast.
That is true.
And he, again, I don't think he was the issue so much in this game. But only getting 5 innings, not even 5 innings out of your starting pitcher. I know they have bullpen help now, but they can't. Their starters have to go farther. Well, that trend continued in Game 3 because Joe Ryan looked much better. Now, granted, everybody looks a lot better when you're playing the Tigers, but he goes 5, and then that's it. Struck out 9, 3 hits, 1 earned run. He does get his 8th win of the season. Only 78 pitches. Hoges, 63 strikes. Why did you not let this guy keep going into the 6th?
Yeah, that was a super weird call by Rocco not to keep Ryan in there, but I think what happened is he had this new bullpen that he just really wanted to trot out there, and then did he ever after that?
He did. It was like he had a shiny new toy in the car or in the garage, and he had to bring it out.
It was encouraging to see how well Ryan bounced back. I mean, when you're giving up 10 earned runs and you come back and have a start like that with 9 strikeouts and 1 earned run, I mean, that's what you like to see.
And I don't think we said the score. The Twins won this one 4-1, and that 1 run really was because Ryan had hit a couple batters to get a guy in base. The Tigers only had 3 times when they came up with runners in scoring position, and they got hit that 1 time. Also, Jose Miranda got a stolen base in this game. I think Dan Hayes' tweet was something like, he's a true 30-3 guy.
I saw that
going
one.
Forward
that was
here.
Great. There's no way that was a stolen base, too. Like, I had him in Puckett's pick, so I am more than happy to get that extra point for the stolen base. That was a wild pitch. I mean, there's no way that was a stolen base. There was a pass ball, and he walked to second.
Also, Correa had a big hit in this game, too. It ended up being an insurance run in the 6th, but he almost got hit by a pitch and then comes back. And actually, the play where he was hit by the pitch, it was convenient that he wasn't, because Buxton then actually took off and went to second base to make some space. And then Correa just kind of poked a single through the middle. Buxton had to kind of pause because he thought maybe the ball was going to get fielded behind him, but then he was able to buzz around and score. Correa just, again, and I think it's those soft spots throughout the series. It's him talking to Rocco, apparently, and recommending Jorge Lopez. He continues to act like he's going to be here for a little while longer, Hoges. I mean, maybe you were right.
David is ripping from me for this all the time, but I think Correa comes back next year. It just seems like he's really invested in this team more than you would be in just in a 1-year rental kind of a situation. I mean, apparently he was one of the biggest ones to push that they needed to keep Miranda on the team and not trade him. And it sounds like, reading between the lines a little bit, if the Twins were willing to offer Miranda, we would have got Frankie Montas on the team. And frankly, I'm glad that they kept Miranda with how promising that he looks. But a guy like that, you don't think he acts like that if he is planning on just signing a $300 million contract elsewhere next year. So, I mean, again, I'd still be stunned if the Twins gave him that much money for that much term. But I don't know. It just seems bizarre.
I think it might be better than 50-50 that he stays. And David is laughing at us right now.
For sure.
But again, but if he looks at this team as constructed now, look at the starting lineup for next year in terms of, the batting order and the starting rotation, like Carlos Correa has to look at this team and think, I think this is a championship winning team next season.
You look at their starting rotation next year with Gray, Ryan, Mahle, Maeda, and then a combination of Ober, Winder. I mean, who else that you want to throw in there? I mean, that is a solid starting rotation. Their bullpen with Moran and Lopez at the back end, or Durant, and Lopez at the back end is looking pretty good now too. And they have young people that are signed for a long time. They're the only team that hasn't had a at bat by a guy over 31, I think, this year too. So you can't really blame Correa if they give him a semi-decent contract for staying here. I think it's going to happen. I think it's better than 50-50 also.
Let's go head forward to Puckett's picks.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
Hoges, you finally
Finally.
win for the listeners. How about you go ahead and give us the scores?
All right, the listeners, I took Miranda. We got 7 points. David took Buxton and got 2 points. Dan, you bizarrely took Garlic and got -1 point.
Well, it didn't feel bizarre at the time, but then I'm watching the games and I'm like, wait a second, hold on. I could have had Arias. I could have had Correa. I could have had Polanco. Now, I don't think any of them would have won. I think you had the leader in the clubhouse, but yes, I feel a little foolish taking Garlic now.
I'll be honest, though, when I saw that Buxton was in the lineup today, I got super nervous nervous because I knew Miranda was already, I believe he had 6 points already coming into the game today, and I was feeling pretty good about it. And then I started thinking, I mean, I better win. I mean, Garlick played half the game. Buxton hadn't played any. Then I see Buxton in there. Man, he hits 2 home runs and we're done. And I'm going to lose again. So I'm glad Miranda pulled it off. The listeners needed one. We needed one.
Well, your consistency paid off. So David still leads at the season standings with 13. I have 12. The listeners now have 8. And then season points, I'm at 181. I went backwards. David has 161 and the listeners have 140. So, you can close that gap there on David, I think, with a couple more picks here.
Yeah, it's time to get a streak going. All it takes is one, and then you just get one after that.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
So there's some obvious choices, Jose Miranda obviously among them, but I'm going to go with Sandy Leon for a couple reasons. First of all, he gets the runs that the Twins desperately needed to start this game in Game 3 because I was worried, gosh, if they lose this series somehow with Joe Ryan on the mound, but Leon comes up with the 2-out double to score 2 runs, and that was really enough for the team. But also, I just think there's something about having a competent catcher, an experienced catcher as the backup, and maybe he's even going to end up starting as many times as Gary Sanchez. Sanchez is 8 for his last 45 at the plate. It was just really nice to see that spot that I didn't necessarily think was a position of need clearly show that this was a position that is now a lot better instead of Caleb Hamilton. It's much better, I think, to have Sandy Leon on your side. He
did hit in this game, but I think it's also encouraging how well Ryan did. I think that's a solid point because he was able to manage that game really well. And it's exciting that you have a guy. And at the post-game interview that they had with him, he was so excited to be on the Twins. Every question they asked him, he's like, I'm here to win. Let's do this. So it's fun kind of getting that fresh infusion of a guy who's just ready to go and excited to get the opportunity where he has it and hopefully take advantage of it.
Who's your beast?
You guys picked pitchers who only pitch like 7 pitches in one game, so I figured I could go outside the box a little bit, and I picked Falvey and Levine. Twins fans, we've given them so much grief about not doing what they needed to do at the deadline in all these other years, that they don't go all in, and everyone's been saying, okay, this year it's super obvious. They need 1 starter and 2 relievers. Well, what did they do? They went out and they got 1 starter and 2 relievers, a great starter, 1 awesome reliever, 1 solid reliever. I mean, they did exactly what we needed to do. Who knows how well it'll pay off, but I'm just pumped that they went all in, and they clearly are viewing this year as important enough to take a shot. And even though we did part with some pretty solid prospects, the top of our farm system is still pretty much intact, and I think we're set up for years to come. We got guys with team control. This was a really solid deadline showing for them.
Losing Spencer Steer obviously feels like it hurts because he's a name that we've been excited about, but he plays third base and maybe some short, maybe some second, but Jose Miranda is going to be this third baseman here on this team for a long time, it looks like, hopefully. And then you think of Encarnacion Strand. I mean, yes, he's a good player. They gave up a couple pitchers that look like they might be, and the bottom line is you just don't know. And also, I think the other factor in this, last year the Twins were sellers and they got Joe Ryan in a rental for Nelson Cruz. And I just think you had a year last year where you kind of retooled. They had the assets to be able to go out and get some proven guys.
And part of that, viewing prospects as trade bait is legitimate. I mean, that's what you need your farm system for. So it's props to the Twins drafting class too, because they were able to get guys that they're able to turn into these proven major leaguers as well, and that counts too. That counts as developing players. So I'm really excited about the direction that this team went. Let's hope it pans out.
Well, let's go to bench here. Who's in your bench, Hoges?
I feel bad about this one because he didn't play that bad, but I gave it to Luis Ariz. The rest of the team did fairly well. There wasn't a whole lot of guys that just really didn't stand up to what they were supposed to, but Ariz went 1 for 5 in Game 1. And then in Game 2, he also went 1 for 5 with a run scored, and then he didn't play in Game 3. His average now is down to 329, which is, it's still absolutely incredible, but he hasn't just been quite clicking in this series. So hopefully that day off will be good for him, and he'll come back against the Blue Jays and turn it around.
How good is this guy that I don't know.
That I'm critiquing him for a 330 batting average? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I'll say this is, how does anybody ever hit 400? This is just...
there was a guy that the Twins had a while ago that was batting 408 at the All-Star break one year.
Who was that?
Who was that? Catcher, but I can't remember what his name was.
You mean one of the greatest catchers of all time?
Future Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer, Joe Mauer. Yeah, I think that was him.
Okay. Good. I guess that was him. With my bench spot, I'm going to go with Griffin Jax. He took the loss in Game 2. 3 earned runs, and this was hard because I didn't know who else to really give it to. So this is kind of like my default kind of knee-jerk reaction is to pick a reliever who didn't pitch well, but I don't see anybody else's line that really stands out here. So I'm going to give it him for the blown save. At the same time, he had thrown 20 pitches the day before, and I just don't know. I've never liked guys throwing back-to-back games if you can avoid it, especially in close situations like this game was.
Oh, and now I think we're not going to be able to have to dive into that as much. Like, I think Jax and Duran are going to benefit from this almost more than anyone else with having these 2 new bullpen arms.
That's a good point. Well, let's look at Rocco's Rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
So my question for Rocco is, in game 1, in the bottom of the 9th, the Twins had guys on first and second with nobody out, and Contreras is up to bat, and they called a bunt, which clearly makes sense in that situation. You want to get guys to second and third with the top of the order coming up. He whiffs on the first one, called second strike, and so with the third pitch, the first baseman is still playing 10 feet away from home plate. I've never seen a first baseman come in that far. And they still had the bunt on. Contreras fouls it off, and he's out. Now, my question for Rocco is, why are we bunting with 2 strikes? I absolutely love the bunt call before that. But with 2 strikes, there's so many things that can happen. And for folks who don't know, if you foul a third strike with a bunt, you're out. I hate that call. And I'm wondering if that came from Rocco or from Contreras himself. I imagine it's Rocco because of where Contreras is in his career, but I did not like that call.
And don't you gotta lay it down? Like, Contreras, you are the 8th outfielder in this system here right now. Like, you have to be able to bunt and just get that down in advance. I know that the Twins won, but that's a huge miss if the Twins don't win that game.
Oh yeah, for sure. If they don't come back and win that in the 10th, this looks like a much bigger moment, but it's so frustrating to me when they can't manufacture runs in those situations.
So I'm going to look at the outfield, kind of a bigger picture thing, and I know that they are depleted right now. So Trevor Larnach is still on the injured list. Alex Kirilloff is now on the injured list. Max Kepler is on the injured list. Byron Buxton was having his rest days, his spa week, it felt like, here at home. And I thought was interesting. So first of all, Jake Cave makes a courageous return to the lineup here in game 2. And you got to credit Jake Cave for biding his time down in AAA and then being able to come back up. But I thought it was interesting that he wasn't playing center. Nick Gordon was playing center between Contreras and right and Cave and left. And this makes me wonder, like, have they really gained this much faith in Nick Gordon as a center fielder that he is like maybe the primary backup? That was really surprising to me.
Yeah, because Cave has played pretty decent center field too, but I think that is a good sign though that they have that trust in Gordon to be able to put him in center. And credit to Cave. Cave looked awesome in game 2. His first couple at bats, his motor was going. He was ready to go. He looked fired up. I loved that. I loved that attitude. Like, hey, you send me down this long, when I get my shot again, I'm gonna produce. So it was, I can't say it was fun seeing Jake Cave up there again, but man, he took advantage of what he could.
His OPS right now, Hoges, is 1.238.
Look at that.
I tell you.
Keep him up here. Let's go.
Well, that's the thing, because I think they kind of have to now. You send him down, and I think he has to clear waivers again. Maybe somebody can correct us on that. But man, Jake Cave, and here's the thing, with all these injuries, I don't see how, if somebody gets sent down, it's like you got to send Contreras down and keep Cave on the Major League roster.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's up here for a while now until maybe Kepler gets back.
Who'd have thought, Hoges, that we would be looking at a lineup without Sano, but it does have Jake Cave in it? Like the endurance of the enduring presence of Jake Cave. I love it.
You can't get rid of him. You just cannot get rid of him.
All right, well, let's go ahead to our Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
I think the obvious one in this series is Urshela hitting the 2-run homer to win game 1. But I didn't want to pick that one. I wanted to pick Miranda's game-tying single in the bottom of the 8th of game 1. Like, that guy, he has so many clutch hits in the last month or so when he's just been raking. And that was such a huge opportunity for him. He gets the hit. It seems like he's always producing in those moments. So, yeah, I'm giving it to Miranda. That was just a momentum changer of that game and set the table for Urshela to hit that home run later.
So rather than, I was thinking of some unsinkable Jake Cave moment here, but I went with Jorge Lopez's clean, I think it was a 7-pitch 9th inning here in game 3, because man, when's the last time that we had a Twins relief pitcher, but certainly in the 9th inning, just so lock down the other team? It was refreshing to see. It was like watching, I don't know, who in their prime? Joe Nathan, Glenn Perkins. Like, even Duran sometimes seems to make those 9th innings just a little bit interesting sometimes. He had to walk, he hits a batter. But man, what a clean, great inning and a great way to end the series.
It was incredibly boring, and I loved that. Like, especially the guy's first time coming up with the team too. I was glad that they got those insurance runs to make it 4-1-2 to give him a little bit of a cushion, which he didn't need at all. He just shut the door. That's got to give him confidence. That's got to give Rocco confidence in using him. That was a great moment for this team.
Well, that's going to lead into our Mauer's musings here.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Mauer's musings.
So I think with all of these acquisitions, my question was, especially in watching this game, if you're Rocco and say your starters are only going 5 innings, because that seems about what they've been going here, but say it's a 1-run game, what is your ideal 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th now with the bullpen? Who do you put in there? And ignoring matchups.
Right, sure. So I would say it's got to be, I think Lopez in the 9th, because I think it takes a little bit of pressure off Duran, who's just not been a closer as long as Lopez. Now, Lopez, he started as a starter, and he's been converted, and I think it's another one of those, great success stories, at least so far, of converting a guy to a reliever. I'd go with Lopez in the 9th, Duran in the 8th, and then probably even like Pagan or Duffy in the 7th, because I think that they have the stuff to be able to shut people down. And then in the 6th, that frees you up for just about anybody. Heck, it frees people up in the 5th inning to be able to come in when Chris Archer can only give you 4.
Yeah, I think it's just so huge to get those 2 guys that are basically in our top 3 of our bullpen arms, with Duran being in there as well. I mean, it's just huge for this team. We went from having a really shaky bullpen to what looks like on paper a really strong bullpen. But I agree with you. I think that's kind of how we're going to see it going forward here for a while now.
And I guess this is to throw it back to you a little bit. Where does McGill fit into this team as well? Because he's another one of those hard throwing relievers who I think he can hit 100.
Yeah, and he still looks good too. I mean, maybe they try to transition a guy to more of a bit of a long relief role, that they have this solid back end, so they're going to have a guy try to, hey, you're coming in for 2 to 3 innings of mop-up work. But my guess would be also we're going to see Duran pitch less of 2 innings and more of just 1 innings, where these guys are really going to be hucking it. So maybe that's what turns into McGill, where he becomes a longer relief guy.
It's a good problem. And we didn't even mention Fulmer, the other guy that they got too. So yeah. a wealth of arms finally in the bullpen at this point. Enough that, Joe Smith, who, I don't know, Hoges, I'm feeling a little sad that Joe Smith is gone, because he was the only guy on the team who was older than me. And so now I'm feeling my age again with Joe Smith. I hope he lands somewhere and is able to keep pitching this year.
Oh, the last time I went to a game, my brother kept pointing up at the scoreboard the entire game going, that guy's older than you. Or younger than you. That guy's younger than you. That guy's younger than you. I'm like, they all are younger than me. I get it.
It's part of getting old, I suppose, Hoges. These, the dream has to die just a little bit, I think, to be a professional baseball player.
Hey, I'm still younger than whatever that guy was in The Rookie, so I still got a chance.
Say, do you think we can make a reference to The Rookie and David would understand that one?
I don't know. I mean, did they sing any music in there at all?
Maybe we got to just start working in songs to all these different movies that David loves. So my question here, I'm going to look at the other side. Is this lineup actually going to be healthy enough to keep this team in first place? I think we feel better about the pitching now, but I'm just getting a little worried about this lineup, Hoges, as the injuries just kind of pile up.
We have to get to a point where we start putting some space between us and the Guardians and the White Sox, because, I mean, I feel really good about our chances right now. We're still only 1 game up, and it feels like we should be a lot more. And, I mean, it should be even less, because we haven't played that well in the last, let's be honest, 2 to 3 months. Mm-hmm. So it is worrisome when all these guys keep going down. You want to start getting some separation, because all it takes is you getting swept at the end of the year, and all of a sudden you're out if it's that close of a division race.
Well, and here, 4 against the Blue Jays, then 2 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Angels, who are in free fall, but they still have talented players. I just think they need to be able to push some space here, especially when they've got so many home games here left in August.
And I continually am worried about Buxton with his knee issue. Like, if he's still needing all of these off days, you got to think he's close to just one bad step, and maybe he's out for an extended period of time. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest question going forward. If this team can stay healthy, they are clear division favorites, but that's a big if.
Well, let's go into the series grades.
Series grades.
I don't know. Does David did he start with the lower grade and then the higher grade? Do you remember what he said last week?
He always says lower grade first, because he's a negative person with no song in his heart, so he likes to be brought down first.
Well, I'll start then. So I will say a B, because I thought losing game 2 was just disappointing, given the fact that they just added these guys. I know those guys really weren't going to play. I really wanted the sweep here, and that was such a winnable game if somebody just comes through with a big hit.
Yeah, I'm grading the team as a whole, with like the front office, the players, players, the acquisition. So I gave them an A, and I'm definitely grading on a curve based on the acquisitions from the trade deadline. This Tigers team is bad. Like, there's no doubt about it. I mean, look at how many strikeouts our starters had this series. But I had just had such a good taste in my mouth after the deadline, so I gave him an A.
That's fair, too. Well, hey, there were other trades across the league. Let's look at those in Herbie's headline.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
I don't even know where to start here, Hoges. How about you pick one, and I'll add another one or two.
If I asked you to tell me who exactly the Padres all had to give up for Juan Soto, could you even get close? I mean, they got a generational talent, and they gave up a ton. I mean, they look great. I mean, anytime you can get a guy like that, you can't really fault a team for going all in. But, man, that price tag was steep.
So they have Juan Soto, they have Fernando Tatis, I think he's coming back from the injured list, they have Manny Machado, and I don't think anybody else plays for the Padres. I think they're just going to put those three out there and say, we'll beat you 3-9.
That's not the only thing they did either. They went out and got Hader at the deadline too and sent our boy Rogers over to the Brewers. I mean, this team's going all in. They're going to be fun to watch, if not for just the star power that they have right now.
Well, and did you see also Brent Rooker got sent away?
I did.
In a deal. I had kind of forgotten that Brent Rooker was even still a factor here, so he's gone. Where did he end up? Did he go? Which deal did he go in?
I don't even know what deal it was because he went to the Royals. So I don't know how the Royals factored into all those trades because that's not the Brewers or the Nationals. So it must be something else that they did.
Well, you know what? Okay, so he factored into the Whit Merrifield trade because finally the Royals got rid of Whit Merrifield. And you know what's funny? Just in time for the Toronto Blue Jays, who got him to come to Target Field. So you know Whit Merrifield is going to have a big series here when he comes back to play the Twins.
Well, and apparently Merrifield's only going to be able to play away games because he's not vaccinated and he got traded to Toronto. So that's a weird deal too. But man, there were so many trades in baseball. Like the Yankees went out and the rich got richer with getting Frankie Montas. It was wild. And we played a big role in that. I'm proud of us.
Well, and I think importantly, too, the White Sox and the Guardians really didn't do much. So it says to me, I think, well, I don't know that they think the Twins are the better team, but maybe they saw the Twins making those deals and they thought, ugh, or they just weren't, they didn't have the team prospects. I think it comes back to crediting Flavien Levine for just doing great moves that really didn't feel like the Twins gave up too much.
It almost made me more nervous seeing that the Guardians and the White Sox did nothing because it's our division to lose. I mean, they basically said, yeah, you go for it. I mean, basically, the Guardians gave us a win today. I mean, because they gave us Sandy Leon, so...
Isn't that was strange. It was strange to me that they traded within the division knowing, because my understanding is the Guardians weren't going to use him very much, but just to even help your rival team just a little bit like that seems odd to me.
It really felt like they were waving the white flag. But yeah, that was super bizarre. I understand the Tigers giving us a reliever that's only a rental that we're just going to have for this year. That makes sense. The Tigers aren't competing, but for the Guardians to give us that when we clearly did need a backup catcher, it was weird.
All right, well, let's go into Puckett's picks.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Puckett's Picks.
All right, Hoges, if you had to choose, who are you going to take here? You get first pick for the listeners.
I've got to take Miranda again. I just have to. I can't miss my shot, so I'm going to go with Miranda.
I'm going to go with Correa. I'm going to save David the trouble of having to try to pick him. I haven't had Correa because I think it feels like David's been bunking with him here for a long, long time. I can never get my hands on him. So I'm going to take him, I think, for the first time since June in the Diamondback series. Hopefully he does better than that. And then David is actually going to take Byron Buxton again. So I guess for David's sake, hopefully he plays more. Well, for all of our sakes, hopefully he plays more than one game here in this Toronto series. Maybe they were saving him. They figured they didn't need him against the Tigers, and they thought, let's make sure he can play at least 3 against the Blue Jays.
I think that's a good pick. You got to think he's going to play tomorrow with kind of having a long off day for the rest of the day today and then not playing again until tomorrow night. So I think that's a solid pick to take Buxton there.
All right, let's go to our guest segment here. David and Dan's Dumbs. Hoges, you got anything?
Unfortunately, my only dumb that I have this week is for myself. I got so excited when I was ripping on you for having little faith in the Twins winning the World Series that I said that Eddie Rosario won the ALCS MVP. I obviously know that Eddie Rosario plays for the Braves and that they are in the NL. This comment is mostly self-serving because I wanted to make sure that people know I misspoke. I did not know that he played in the National League. But yeah, that one was beating me up afterwards.
That's okay. It happens to us all. And I will say, anytime we can get Eddie Rosario's name on the podcast, I'm happy. So if it took a mistake from you, then so be it, Hoges.
Did you notice that Rosario had 5 RBIs yesterday and the Braves won 13-1? Granted, he is batting like 198 on the year, but he had a good day yesterday.
You know, his eye was giving him trouble for a long time. I'm just so glad that he's back.
Hey, maybe we'll have a 1991 rematch this year against him.
That would be nice. I'll take that. Now, I'm still not as convinced as you that the Twins are going to be a World Series contender. But
not even after these deadline moves?
I feel better about it now. But the Yankees got better. The Astros got better. It feels good to be the underdog, I suppose, in that situation. Like, I feel like the Twins are the favorite to win the division. And I think if they don't win a playoff game now, I'm disappointed. And we'll work up to being disappointed if they don't win a playoff series, I suppose. That's the next step.
Hey, as Twins fans, we got to take what we can get, right?
Exactly. All right, Hoges. Well, thanks for joining me. I look forward to doing this one more time while David's off playing board games in Indianapolis. I hope he brings back a whole bunch of board games. Just don't tell his wife how many he bought. And does he pawn board games off on you, Hoges?
No, I actually hate playing board games, so that is one thing that I will just never understand. What he's doing this weekend, to me, sounds like my worst nightmare.
This is the equivalent of, like, you going to Broadway and seeing, like, 4 shows. I think if you picture it that way, like, then you can understand where David's joy is. David's joy is in meeples. So I think that's where it is.
So maybe what you're saying is David and I need to have, like, a board game night, and then the next night we go to a musical together, and then we compare notes, and maybe we open our horizons to new things.
Exactly. I think that's probably it. All right, Hoges, well, I'll send us out here, and I look forward to doing this again on Sunday.
Yeah, that'll be great. I'm really excited to talk to you again Sunday.
Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on Twitter at Min for the Win. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube. We're everywhere. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating, that would be great. Thanks for listening. And as always, go Twins.
That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, 2 avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.